I'm okay.
Very good. Very good. Glad to have you.
We
Thank you,
good,
sir.
we good. It's about passing the baton. We tired, so we're training them all up.
Yeah.
So how's it been going?
Oh, so far so good. Beginning of the year, we were really trying hard to get our sales levels up, and only to find out that the economy was taking some turns and some of the work was being delayed. So
Wow.
when I say delayed, it wasn't delayed a month. It was like delayed for 8 months.
Oh my goodness. Oh my
But
goodness.
that's what challenges are for.
That's what the life of an entrepreneur is. It's a roller coaster, isn't it?
Yeah, hey, if
Yeah.
you can't swim, you're gonna learn.
Absolutely. 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 They're all jumping in. Hello, GPI community. Welcome, welcome. I'm glad you all are joining us and getting educated in a different space. And Angelina, how you doing? Thank you, Angelina, for being persistent to getting this busy man getting us on his calendar.
Absolutely.
Mhm. Okay. It is 12 o'clock noon. And so I'm going to go ahead and start this. But before we start, I always like to do a little housekeeping to bring everybody up to speed on where we are and what we're doing. So just give me my 30-second update. Again, as always, we're always about networking, collecting, making sure that you include your information in the chat box, your background. Have you completed your certifications? If you have not completed your business profile at gpiwin.com, please do so. My goal is to bring the government to us. So your profile must be completed at gpiwin.com. And if you have taken the program or completed the program, let us know that too. It's all about collaboration. The next information session for our upcoming cohort will start Saturday and next Saturday. The next 2 Saturdays, we'll have the information session with the March cohort dates starting Tuesday, March 14th. On March 10th, I'm excited about having Ed Schultz. Ed Schultz retired from CDC. He was the branch chief over the acquisitions. So he's going to come and share his knowledge on really what not to say to a contracting officer when you get that opportunity to sit down and have your 30-second pitch. He and I have been working together since he retired, I think in 2017. So I'm excited about hearing from Ed. Also, those of you who have not got the book, please do so. That's Crazy. Recognize Crazy and Run. There's the QR code. And again, that kind of documents my process in that first business and lessons learned. That's what I'm all about. It's about making sure each one teach one and we learn from others. Again, you can contact us here. Also, for those of you who don't know about our community, please scan our QR code and send them to us. Our goal is to continue to create millionaires. That's our slogan. Also, subscribe to us on Facebook, LinkedIn. Let's get the following going. And with that being said, I am so excited that Mr. Perryman has joined us today so that he can share his story, his journey on how he's built a legacy based on what his father started. And now he has his daughter as part of the entity. And we're just going to go ahead and jump right into this interview. What I like to do is just open up and give you a little background on how I know Mr. Perryman. He was actually one of my 8A firms when I first got to Philadelphia in 2008. So it's been, I left Philadelphia in 2012. So it's been a while that I've seen him. And I always knew that he was very successful on the commercial side, as well as trying to crack the mold in the government side. So it was important for me that he began to share his knowledge and his story. So Mr. Perryman, let's start with your story and your father and how you took the baton from him and took it to another level.
Oh, thank you. You know, it's a pleasure being here with you as well, Paula, Miss Watts. You know, one of the more important things is that you find out that when you have resources across the country, it's going to be a time when you have to call upon them. So we've always felt very comfortable being able to call and touch base with you and your expertise and how you're trying to help businesses move forward. Perryman Construction was started in 1954 by my father, Jimmy. And he started initially at trying to, he was a Korean War veteran coming home from the military, trying to figure out what does he do with himself, like many military people are doing even now. They had the GI Bill. The GI Bill allowed him to get some of the training that he needed to be self-sufficient in business. So he started out first as doing specialty renovations. At that time, it was a segregated town of Evergreen, Alabama, for which it was just at the point of starting to integrate. So having a good reputation of being able to do small projects, he kept getting more and more work, and then began to what became a construction business. My grandfather was, strangely enough, how all these things linked together. My grandfather was what they call a handyman. And being a handyman, he wasn't allowed to, so to speak, start a business at that time, but he was working for what was then a bridge building company, where he had to work with steel and iron, which gave his son the next step of something that he could do in construction. Our family business, which was founded in Evergreen, Alabama, was kind of known for its ability to give opportunities to the local community residents, to give them a chance to kind of pick themselves up and give them an opportunity that they probably never had before. So we became very much so known as, you know, a family business, because we knew all the families in the neighborhood, and usually their first jobs came that way. But as you would expect with my brothers and I, we had that point where we all were trying to decide what we wanted to do. I've been in the construction industry my full life. It was very few opportunities outside of construction that I've been a part of. And with that, I took a moment away from the family business, because I thought that I could work in a bigger part of the world, and I started working with a firm called Blunt Construction. Blunt Construction is out of Montgomery, Alabama, and what I didn't know at that time is that Winton Blunt, the owner of Blunt Construction, was a part of the Nixon administration as Postmaster General. And if you know much about the history of 8A, the 8A program and its expansion was done in the Nixon administration. Nixon administration obviously was trying to find ways to get more people involved in the commerce of the federal government. So when Winton Blunt finished his tour with the administration, he came back to Montgomery, and that became an opportunity for me to be in estimating. And when I was in estimating, it helped me work on costs, logistics, and I had the opportunity of working in 6 different states. In Burkeville, Alabama, which was the first Lexan facility in the world. 5 or 6 pulp and paper mills in Savannah, Georgia, Prattville, Alabama. Went to Prudhoe Bay, Alaska to work on an oil quenching system.
So did you go to college anywhere in between that?
Yeah. Well, I did my secondary education at Tuskegee University and at Auburn University.
Okay.
And I appreciate you helping me kind of narrow this down because the road could get a little long there. Mr.
Yes, okay. And so you got in Alabama, and Blunt gave you the a bigger exposure to this space.
Yes.
Mhm.
Now, and that bigger exposure became an opportunity to come to Philadelphia on the Pennsylvania Convention Center when Philadelphia was desired to have many more management level African Americans in big construction. And so they did a national search in Philadelphia to only find out that there were 3 candidates in that space. And I was one of those 3 candidates.
Oh, wow. So
But
how did the business transfer from your father to you? When did you pick up the baton?
Well, when I came to Philadelphia, I was at that point, young family, and I wanted to allow my kids to have an opportunity to be kids. So after the completion of the Pennsylvania Convention Center, I transferred the headquarters of Perryman Construction to Philadelphia and took over the reins of leadership at that time.
Wow. And that was what year?
1998.
We're not gonna date ourselves, but it's all good. Okay.
So I've been at the helm for a few minutes now, but it has been a long-standing tradition and within our family business is that you bring the kids in very young. So my son and daughter are both involved in the business. Angelina is vice president, and Anthony is one of our project engineers. So they kind of, one takes the administrative route, one takes the field administration route.
And was there any different in competing for work in Alabama and as opposed to Pennsylvania? Was a different lay of the land?
Oh, well, much greater lay of the land. Your reputation of quality work and relationships tend to link together when you're in the Southeast. As you get into the Northeast, it probably adds in some new components where it may be unionized versus non-union. It may be that the complexity of the kind of opportunities that you may get. When I was in Alabama, we focused pretty much so on residential and in small commercial. With my experience with some of the other firms that I worked with, I expanded that to full commercial, industrial, and pharmaceutical. So it's somewhat of a difference. A lot more levels of complexity to understand.
And so when you're talking about commercial, because again, I worked at SBA and serviced a lot of construction firms, primarily in the Pennsylvania office. And what I found was you all had a lot more challenges in that area, meaning you had to deal with the union, which is not the norm outside of Pennsylvania. And then just trying to get your foot into the door under that 8A arena. What challenges did you have, or were there challenges, or if you can share?
Well, when you're in the commercial space, what was the biggest plus for me is having a background in big project capabilities. And what you will realize is that there is nothing that you will do opportunity wise that you won't reuse again. I don't know that I knew that all those opportunities that I did in the past would be so influential in the opportunities that I would have in the future. And to a large degree, that was the key. Working in some of those other complex projects, I understood logistics, accounting matrix and finance. Safety was a key component. How to deal with a management structure and retention. And in all those areas are key growth components of any business. And what I would probably think about when we always try to box people into where do you fit when you say minority business and things like that, we think that measurement is different, and it's not.
Correct. We have to, and that's what I found working with a lot of businesses in Pennsylvania. And that's one of the reasons I created the program, because we have to understand the business side of it before we do anything. And that's where we tend to fall short.
Well, sometimes I think we focus so heavily on the status that we forget that at the end of the day, no different than a person working at your home, you judge them by the end product. It's not how you got there, it's the end product. Did you arrive on time? Did you staff it, plan it properly? Did you communicate to the client clearly what your objectives were? Did you have a schedule? Did that schedule reflect what you actually did? And that at the end of the day, client feels like they can talk to you and you can understand their vision and how you can execute the vision.
And that's another way to eliminate, yes, we know there are barriers for us entering into that space, but bottom line, people want to know, regardless of your color, are you going to do a good job? That's how I was able to grow my first business. As long as I did a great event, they were still feeding me. It didn't matter about my color. So I think sometimes we carry that on our shoulders, that we may need to, think of it. Do you have your thing together? So do you have any other recommendations that you're going to offer to our community?
Well, I think as in most things, the best thing that I can always say is that, always have a plan, the plan that basically you can measure, and always go back and recheck the plan. Because what you don't realize, what I never really appreciated is that when I did a good job, that there were always other people in other sectors that wanted to give an opportunity to somebody like that had our same philosophy. And if I really didn't have a way to plan and get there, then I really couldn't capitalize on the opportunity that I didn't expect,
Can you elaborate when you're talking about plan? That seems right. Break it down as if we're in grade school. What do you mean by the planning?
Well, at the beginning of every year, let's say we're now at the beginning of 2023, probably in the end of 2022, we were trying to assess the marketplace and where we thought we could get work. And obviously that's just setting the vision for us to say, what will it take to get them to say, okay, or how do we understand what's available? And then what do we think of what's available we got our best shot at? And then we're saying we have to communicate our value proposition. So how do we present our case that we have X number of managers with this kind of experience that meets their kind of expectations of what the complexity of the project is, what systems, computer systems are we using that allows them to understand exactly what we're trying to accomplish, and that they can also look over our shoulder and feel comfortable as they go, that when they report upstream to their boss or administrative level that everything is okay. And we're also evaluating as well, are we cutting edge as the client is? How cutting edge are we to what the client expects?
Okay. So let me take your hat back to that small business that's just starting out, because it took you a while to
Took a
get
while.
to all those systems and value proposition. I'm just out there. I know my skill set. I know how to do it. What
Yeah.
would you recommend to that small construction company that is just starting out?
Good question. It's probably keep it simple. Keep it simple. You know what your personal growth plan is, or you may say, I want to make X amount of salary in this year. And in order to do that, it's going to require X amount of projects per year. And then begin to just simply just say, have we really marketed to the customer that wants us? At one time when we were smaller, our focus was on bank projects. In those bank projects, probably the largest project was $10,000. That was large. And if it was at that amount, how do I keep the same team together? One year we bid close to 500 projects, won about 120 of them in 1 year. And knowing those kind of statistics like that help you understand how much work you got to do marketing wise or opportunity wise to be successful for the year.
And how do you build out those? How did you start building out the bidding, your bidding infrastructure? So you're talking about two things. You're talking about actually bidding and marketing. So those are, how do those coincide with each other, and where do they begin and start?
Well, sometimes you got to build the runway. As you say, in the public sector, they're within the federal market. There are opportunities that are geared towards emerging small or large businesses. You do your research to see how many opportunities are really there that you can do. It may even be in some sectors like the school districts and what kind of projects they're going to have. But it's going to take a lot of advanced work to at least understand what's available for you to do.
So,
and if you're structuring your business plan, you're obviously making a business plan that says that a number of opportunities are available that's within the space you're interested in. If the business plan says it's not there, then you got to question the next question.
And so most of your work has been primarily local, state, federal. What's the ratio and what's the difference in all of those three different sectors?
We kind of make a decision like that primarily through the lens of if I'm in the private sector, the complexity of staff and the cost of staff to execute the way private sector clients expect may not be competitive. We may not be able to use that same staff for public sector. At the end of the day, what everybody should understand is all things in construction are competitive. Everything is competitive. It makes it very, you just have to always understand it's all competitive. It's the price of your staff, it's the price of your workforce, it is the delivery and how fast it can be delivered, your understanding of scheduling, it's all competitive.
Oh, wow. What I found, again, some of the challenges working with my construction firms at SBA was that they weren't able to compete necessarily because of bonding issues. I've always said that was the challenge in that program. And that's why I do love the mentor protege program, because that allows you to leverage a larger company's bonding capacity to go after some of the larger projects. Is that some of the same challenges that you face?
Oh, absolutely. We were probably one of the early champions to hopefully get SBA to get involved in bonding. As I was saying, it's all about competition. So even if you're doing a mentor protege, you have to feel like you're pulling the retained earnings or the earnings necessary that when you're not in a mentor protege, that you can have the foundation needed to get the right price bond.
Mhm.
Sometimes that gets missed, is that mentor protege is supposed to walk with you so that you can align yourself with what competition is,
Mhm.
not just to be a protege. You're trying to match up the skills of whoever is your mentor to say, if I wasn't here, these are the things that are expected. And if it's something that you're missing, then you say, this is stuff that I need to work on now while I'm under the assistance of a mentor to help me get it right. So that when I go out to fight Mike Tyson, then I really got a shot.
Um, and so what recommendations would you provide the audience as it relates to teaming and partnerships, and how do you work it with all of that? And how do you identify the right partner or choose the right partner? How do you manage the staff? All of that.
Well, the step one, I would say, and we've had, I did an article once that basically said everybody needs a mentor, big, small, or medium. Everybody needs a mentor if you want to grow into spaces that you don't currently exist. Best advice I could say is start first with what's the right size firm to be my mentor. If it's a business to business type mentor, peer to peer. If you're dealing with a personality that is trying to mentor you, then you have to understand too that their size, they're becoming an expert at the size that they are. They may not know how to communicate to your size, which was an issue for us, is that we had a mentor that didn't know how to communicate what they were trying to do, the message they were trying to carry to the size that we were. But once you get to that place where you found that right person, I would say you want to start with the key components of what your business is: workforce, safety, management, finance, and accounting. If you don't feel like you're an expert in those spaces, then you have to become an expert in those spaces.
And that's what part of the program teaches, because that was what I lacked in that first business. I went from a project manager to running a multi-million-dollar company and not having a clue what I was doing. I could not even read a profit and loss statement.
Mm-hmm.
So it's important that we understand the business side more so than the actual work. Business is business, regardless of what that industry is what I find.
You're absolutely right. The more you grow, the more the business side pales with your time use than the field side. The last James Brown movie where they were talking about show and business and who is the show and who is the business. And James Brown wanted to be able to know the show and the business. So that's pretty much so what we need to be. It is it's growth. It's not an arrival. I've been doing this over 30 years, and I'm still finding stuff that I never gave credence to the importance that it needed to be. As we Now, needless to say, I can remember when I was working with my father, it was high tech to have a bonding machine when you wrote checks. And when we initially started, we started out with QuickBooks that was modified by an accountant. And now we're in, about 3 other levels since then. But at the end of the day, one of the things that we learned is that when you buy systems off the shelf, you have to be technically capable or computer wise to understand that they can change their software in updates that you just didn't know what they were doing.
Yeah, I spent $17,000 on a Deltek system. Took me 6 months to find somebody to implement it. So you're absolutely correct. So what would you say, can you describe your most successful project and why do you consider that your most successful project?
I don't know. That's almost like naming which one is my better kid. They all are good in some way. One of the projects that probably gave us the most pride. Well, let me do it capable, technical wise. The most technically challenging project that we were part of was the Pennsylvania Convention Center, working with a 100-year-old building, trying to renovate it to present day standards. That was the most technically challenging project. The project that probably meant the most to us was we did a project for Children's Hospital of Philadelphia, which still remains the largest project led by African-American firm in Pennsylvania, Delaware, and New Jersey. So that one probably was most important to our legacy, if you will, because it's very tough at every level to have what you would say is receive the respect that you've done with your work.
I'm gonna open it up for a couple of questions. Anybody from the audience want to ask Mr. Perryman any questions? You can unmute. Well, if not, did you
I have a question. I'm sorry. I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
Good afternoon, everyone. Ms. Paula, Mr. Perryman. My name is Erica Atterbury out of Orlando, Florida, and I'm the president of Alliance Management Consultants. And we are I'm in one of the cohorts here with Ms. Paula, and we're diving in deep now. And so thank you for taking the time to talk to us because my mind is racing and I'm thinking of a million things and writing down notes while you're speaking. And something that came across on my mind is partnering with other contractors. So did you exclusively stay within your state when you were bidding for projects, or did you go out of your state and partner with other contractors and sub out the jobs? And if you did, what could you have done better if you had done so?
That's a good question, and I'll start by saying is that most partnerships are built on a value that each person brings to the table, whether that's relationships, whether that's a integral understanding of the marketplace that you're working in, the town you're working in. We have primarily worked within the Delaware Valley, which is southern New Jersey, eastern Pennsylvania, and northern Delaware. As you start getting beyond those spaces, it becomes now logistical questions that you're going to have to answer as a partner. Are you going to be a part of the management system, which is making the decisions with your partner, or are you going to be a silent partner? So it's about what goals do you have with the partnership other than just as a partnership. All things that you're doing outside with other relationships should be bringing some value to your organization directly standalone. But the things that you want to answer, want to know, want to be clear about is the same things that you would ask if you were local. How's the management going to be handled? The accounting is going to be handled. The safety is going to be handled. It's just how are you going to do all those things and be able to see that it's done, or that you can learn from what you're seeing your partner do.
And have you been a subcontractor under a prime before? And how do you manage and navigate that space? Because a lot of times I've heard horror stories on that side of not getting paid, slow payment, and all of that.
I'm a proponent of know who you're working with always. There are no blind shots. I try not to have a blind shot if I know it. So as a subcontractor, we are a construction manager now, but at one time, it was very little different between what a construction manager is and what a GC is. Really more contractual more than anything. But as a GC, we always the method of best presentation to a client was you had skin in the game. So subcontracting of carpenter-based trades were things that we did. One time we used to probably run 35 carpenters all the time, but that became a stretch business because it was so hard to keep both entities parallel running equally. Very, very hard. I mean, we're for the person asking the question, we are hands-on operation. We want to be involved. It is always our intent to bring value and to be able to point to the value. If we can't show that we made a contribution on the marketing document, it's probably not the best project for us. That's important to us. One of our values.
And what's the largest number?
So what do you do?
Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Good afternoon, Mr. Perryman. This is Joyce Thurman. So you are a CM company, and one of the problems I've encountered with small businesses is being able to vet who they want to do business with. And that seems to be a problem. Sometimes small businesses, they get so hung up with all the wrong characteristics. How do you determine if you want to do business with that firm or not? And if there's a small business who is interested in doing business with you, what are your parameters? I mean, what are your do's and don'ts?
And before you answer that, Joyce is a colleague of mine. She was the deputy director for the Office of Government Contracts at SBA, and she just retired for 42 years. So we're excited about her being on the team. So she has a lot of experience. So go ahead.
Yay.
Yes.
Okay. I think you asked me about 4 questions in one, but first thing first, how do you get to know your potential client? And that's the struggle. That probably should be a red flag to you that you can't know them. The red flag should be is that I need to broaden my understanding of the market more so that I can get to know who's out there that we want to work with. I'd much rather be the picker than the picky.
I like that.
The key thing is understanding who you are as a business. The who you are means that if you got unlimited capital and can stand to go through a fight, in a dispute, then you can try to work with anybody because you got a way to balance the scales. But if you are weakened or coming to the process in a weaker status of being able to defend yourself, then as they would say, stay in your lane.
And that's going to be the situation with most small businesses that, especially those who are just entering that workspace, they're not going to have the capital. And so and you're correct, the red flags are there, but I don't know why we don't see it or we refuse to take the blinders off. So, you have a gut feeling sometimes when you're meeting potential partners. Can you speak to what are some of the experiences you have had when you've had to walk away, even if capitals was not an issue? Did you ever run into a situation where you said, no, we're not going to go with this firm, and why?
Well, I understand your question. I'm still dealing with the first thing. The first thing is that you need to understand who you are. Construction is a totally competitive arena. And the worst thing you can have happen is where you think you have a partner and you really have a competitor. And when I say a competitor, I mean that they want the same thing you want. And stepping on you may be the simplest way to get there.
Exactly. And
So
since
I'm
you're
saying deal with the first question first. And I think after that, all means of production should be solidly in place. What would you do if you had a conflict? You got to ask yourself those questions immediately. Is what do those terms of the contract really say, which are the rules of how we will work together? You're hoping for people to do things in a certain way, but if you start out by saying, I don't know what kind of people they are in the first place, you've already kind of stepped away from the first part. The second part is that you have terms of an agreement that you sign, and the first person that you're dealing with is the very first question, which is who you're dealing with as you say we are to interpret the contract.
So in other words, it's important to have that in writing up front.
Well, I'm saying first thing first, you want to do the homework. As I have a good friend of mine that always says R before the I. So relationship before investment.
Okay.
Dating in simple language, dating. Know
Yeah.
who you are dating.
Yeah.
And it's a 90-day probation. That's for real. Because people tell you who they are.
Yeah. And again, I'm still saying know who you are and don't get caught up in the shiny objects.
Mm.
All right.
Mm.
If you can't say that I've done 4 to 10 commercial projects with the team that I have, you are stepping out on hope and the prayers.
Mm. And how did you go about building those teams? I think that was the second part of the question. What type of screening do you have when you're selecting whether it's people to work for you full time or subcontracting? What are your parameters you're using?
Well, as a CM, I describe to my team is that my job is to make sure that the company that we're working with is legitimate, they have the finances, and they really want a project done, and they willing to pay for it if it's done right. That's my first job. All the staff that goes under that understanding or vision now complies to one piece or another piece of what we're trying to accomplish. So if it's a manager that I'm looking for, and this is a pharmaceutical, I don't think that a higher ed project manager that most of their career as is in higher ed is going to do well in pharmaceutical. And from there, you then begin to break down the project. Is what are the key drivers that make the project successful? It may be the schedule. It may be a certain skill, trade that needs to go well. It's no different than having a critical path. The critical path on the schedule tells you the most urgent things that need to be attended to at what phase of the project. So how do I pick the people? When we price the job, we have built it on paper. So you're coming into it with some understanding of the expectations of all the people that are part of the team.
And their role. So you're just, in essence, creating the position descriptions and then placing the right people in those
Correct.
positions. But
Correct.
sometimes the personality come into play within that when you're because people may have a skill set, but may not be able to manage people. And that happens so often.
It does. Well, it still goes back to the step one. So the step one is that that coming into the selection in the first place, before you even got a project or while you're searching for projects, what you think the people are like that's on your team. It's not unusual in my case that, a person that may have some areas that need more time and attention, that then I fill in the backdrop to make sure that it still goes well. So in other words, you handle this part, I'll handle this for you, but this is what I want you to take away from this experience.
And I think for me, that was really the biggest challenge, is managing the people in any business, because you have so many different personalities.
You do.
People don't just leave their attitudes at home when they come to your office. And for me, it was important that you have a good management team.
Yeah.
But again, when you're starting out, and again, you're starting out small, you're pulling from here and there just to get the work done, and not necessarily looking at the overall picture and how to grow it.
Well, I would say that many times I find businesses growing too fast. And if you take business through a traditional model, you're trying to supply a need you're trying to respond to a need that's available. And ideally, if you have the right capitalization, and obviously many of us do not have the right capitalization, you would basically say, before I even get a project, these are the elements that I need in place to knock on this door and really be seen as a value to the client that's interested. And I would say I use so many of my examples are, if you had somebody coming to your house, would you accept some of the rationales that you are giving a client now? So if you see somebody with mud on their feet and things like that, and they coming in your house, even though they're doing the work, you're gonna have something to say about it. And nobody's gonna tell you that either. You're gonna naturally have something to say about it.
And I think you are in a better position than a lot, because you had your father who had the infrastructure, would you say, for the most part, but you just put it on steroids, but you were able to get a lot from him. And I'm happy that you are passing it on to your children, that same knowledge base. Because I don't think Angelina, I met her, she was still in college, right?
Angelina started very young. When I say young, she was in high school. So we don't count the years when she was in high school, but she was doing contracts when she was in high school.
Oh, wow. And Angelina is woman on and gotten the knowledge. So she has not really had to go outside of just learning under your wisdom. Would you?
That's a good point to make, and what everybody should understand that is that the key to all of this is you're trying to close the gap of disadvantage. Family businesses have a unique ability to help in that space. They won't be able to do all things, but it can help in that space of the disadvantage. But at the end of the day, no matter the disadvantage, what I've come to learn is that in many ways, you become mature. Nobody tells you that you became mature in the business. And if you don't approach your business in such a way that somebody else is making that judgment, you will go into it thinking that somebody's supposed to help you, support you, give you, pull you, prod you. But at some point they say, you're on your own now, baby.
Yes, yes. But to have the blueprint and the footprint, and that's my passion, is to make sure that we continue to pass the baton so that we really truly can build a new Black Wall Street in every city across the United States.
Right.
And giving our future a better hope. Anyone else have any other questions? We have about 10 minutes left. We
Good
have a
afternoon.
lot.
This is
Go
this is
ahead.
Rashawn Burnett. How are you all? I am the president and CEO of AIM Consulting Partners, and we focus on business administration, project management, and technology. And Mr. Perryman, you mentioned as you talked about having a measurable plan, you said to make sure the company, how we have a cutting edge to what the client expects. Can you just expound on that, or maybe give an example of what you meant by that, just so I make sure I have an understanding?
I hope I can. The cutting, what I'm really referring to is that in most cases, a client already has a vision of somebody already that can do what they're looking for. And you probably weren't the first one. So when you knock on the door, you need to be able to say to them in detail what your competitor has already said and what's your better spin to what they have said. So when you say that I'm using Textura as my accounting system, and it has a link to allow the client to look inside themselves directly and see that payments are happening on time, and that they have had releases signed, executed, so there are no issues that can come back that could be a lien to the property. I would dare say that the person that tells me that versus the person that doesn't tell me that just gave me a value proposition.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you. That makes sense. I appreciate that.
Yeah, but it's 100 different scenarios like that, Ms. Burnett. The key areas that I look at, obviously, as I said before, accounting and finance, safety, time loss. Those are issues to me. Because even when I say safety, even though that's a big thing in construction, because a lot of times when safety incidents happen, you may have a waiver from your contractor, but someone will still sue the client. And that now becomes my problem, wasn't anticipated, but you as the service provider will always be remembered to me for future work with that happening, and not remembered as a person to come back. Logistics and workforce, the management practices, and the vision. Those are 5 areas they're constantly being looked at. Because again, you are, as I said, clients already have somebody available that they know have been referred by people they trust. You we are usually those folks getting the knock on the door last. And you got to use that opportunity to impress them. That you getting a shot is one that says, why didn't you call me first? Not that you arrived last.
And so where do you go to look? What systems are you looking for opportunities to determine? What databases are you looking in? Are you using sam.gov and at the federal, or are you just looking at the state, local? What does that look like?
Well, I would say at this point now, our team structure capabilities have elevated to the place where we're trying to make connection directly with the buyer, rather than database structure. I would say database structure, though important, probably 4 steps away from a decision maker. So our past performance level gives us a chance to be on the radar screen. And then it's just about trying to understand, is this the right opportunity for us? So all of the data, all of the databases are good. It's just more work to do. If you have no choice, you have no choice. And if I had to go to a different state, other than the 3 states that we're in presently, then I would have to use that route, or I would have to have a business development person much more engaged to help us get past those 3 or 4 steps.
And what challenges did you see with participants in construction and 8A that you had in cracking the 8A program and getting federal contracts? Just to, give others insight.
The runway issue is a constant issue. It's a much tougher proposition for a growing business to only find a place that had one opportunity. So you have to find places that have many opportunities. So when I was in 8A, the things that I focused on is where people were more likely to use 8A as a means of procurement. Mm-hmm. And if I could get there, then that became like a better place. Logistically get there. Other than that, just it's hip shooting, and that's tough to build a business. Hip shooting on what might come, and you trying to hold on to overhead until it does.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because I believe you did get a couple of restoration projects with the National Forest Service, Park Service.
Park Service.
Yeah.
Park Service in those days were a big 8A user, and strangely enough, so even though I think Pennsylvania is second only to DC at one time in number of 8A firms, there were just a number of 8A firms that really struggled to utilize the 8A access.
And that was my challenge when I left DC and I came to Pennsylvania, and I only had in the entire state only 62 businesses that were a part of the portfolio. And I said, something's wrong here. And you have all of these military bases here. You have the Defense Logistics Agency that's sitting right there on, what's that street? Downtown.
Yeah.
Army Corps of Engineers.
Yeah.
It's not, no one is teaching businesses how to get into it. And what I saw with my firms, it was all skill set driven. You were either a plumber or using in a subcontracting functionality, which is going to limit your access to 8A contracts, because that's under a GC. That's usually going to be a subcontracting component.
That's right. That's it, exactly. And that goes back to what we were talking about earlier, is is what's out there that you can get your opportunity from. You know, what area is going to give you the most access to opportunity. It's a repetitive issue across the country for businesses like ours, is to find a space that has a runway that allows the business owner to create a vision and execute it with some orderly approach.
All right, so as we wrap up here, thank you again. I'm always fascinated with businesses, and I've always been fascinated with the construction industry because I know that's where a lot of our community tend to start, especially our Black men, and just being able to get them in a position to be able to be in this position as opposed to the lower tier.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah.
Very difficult. It can be done. I think some of the things we've talked about today are important. You know, focus on your 4 areas. You know, the counting, safety, logistics and management, constantly checking your vision to make sure that you're in line with where you want it to be. And when there are new opportunities, that those get reintegrated back into the plan, to consistently groom your team, and really know what they can and cannot do. Being able to say that at the end of the day that you made an impact in the marketplace that nobody expected, to be able to communicate that into a marketing approach that allows others to see your value proposition, to make sure that the client understands that you would welcome their vetting or verbally stating that you did a good job, so that others can take advantage of your success.
Thank you again. Is that the stadium in the back, that picture in the back that I see? In the back of your
one is the National Park Service. The one picture is of the National Democratic Convention, where we did the stage there. One is the Subaru headquarters of Northeast with, and the last one is the CHOP Family Care and Literacy Center. These are all projects that we led or were significant partners of.
Thank you, Angelo. I am so proud. Thank you for taking your time out, and our community, give them a hand, at least in the chat, and give them, thank you. Thank you. And thank you, Angelina, for making it happen for us.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yes, we appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your time.
All right. All
Thank
right.
you too, Paula.
All
Yes,
right.
Paula, thank you for bringing these diamonds in here.
Thank you, Mr. Perryman. Awesome.
Thanks so
All
much.
right.
Both appreciate it.
All right. Now get back to your homework. No. Thank you again, Angela.
We
Appreciate it.
appreciate being a part of it, and always when Miss Paula calls, I'm always answering.
Thank you. All right. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.